Hello and welcome to another episode of Death by Bungie. We are going to look at Excalibur Crossbow's new offering for 2025 in this video. It's a beautiful January morning. We got a dusting of snow. It's still snowing a little bit here in the 60-yard backyard. Great stuff. Great time to stay inside and look at crossbows. You know what I'm saying? And I'm wearing an old school Death by Bungie shirt while we look at what is really an old school Death by Bungie crossbow now, isn't it? The original Bungie. This crossbow right here, hanging on the wall behind me. That is an Excalibur Axiom from 2010, shooting a whopping 305 feet per second on a good day, downhill, with the wind at your back. I love that joke. Haven't used that in a long time. But let's look at this new crossbow from Excalibur Crossbow. We go to their website, excaliburcrossbow.com, and the first thing we see is kaboom, crossbows. We build every crossbow to keep all who carry them
in the hunt longer and make them more successful. Built with recurve limb technology. Simple, tough, and accurate. With a limited lifetime warranty.
There you go. That is Excalibur to a T. Simple, tough, accurate, all good stuff. Limited lifetime warranty. They do have one of the better warranties in the business. They're a good company with good customer service. Generally speaking, that's the feedback that you get from people across the board, right, with regard to Excalibur crossbows. It's one of their claims to fame. Now, we evaluate all new crossbow technology with an eye toward what? Smaller, faster, lighter, denser, and cheaper. Yeah, those are the things that we're looking at, and we'll see how Excalibur fares in the mix of things, not only with regard to previous Excalibur models, but with an eye toward other crossbow technology as well. We know Excalibur's recurve technology. It's old school technology, right? I kind of criticize Excalibur for that a little bit, but they got their place in a mix of crossbows, don't they? They're kind of like the Amish of crossbows. The Amish kind of believe that the world stopped in like 1860 or something, and you're not supposed to use technology that's newer than that. Excalibur believes that crossbow technology pretty much stopped in 1400, and we're not going to use technology newer than 1400, I guess. It's like the dark ages of crossbows. I'm being a little hard on them, but this is interesting stuff. We're going to go through it here and look at what we got. When we go to crossbows, we have all crossbows. The Rev X was last year's offering. I do like that Rev X. That's got some real high points in it for me. I like the higher speed with that, but that's not what we're looking at today. No, that's not what we're going to look at. We're going to look over here at the MAG series. The MAG series, okay, we've got the MAG 340. This originally was the Axe 340. Then they got in some licensing problems with the name. There was another company called Axe Crossbows. Well, naturally, Excalibur, you can't sell an Axe model if there's another company that calls themselves Axe Crossbows, right? But the MAG series is interesting to me because it's kind of the modern version of the original Bungie. Think about that. The original Bungie was 305 feet per second. On the slower end, the basic model, kind of, not the most basic model, not the cheapest model. It wasn't their department store model, but it was the bargain model, the low-level model back in 2010. 305 feet per second, no anti-dry fire system, no finger guards, none of the fancy bells and whistles as they existed back in 2010. Fast forward to today, and when they came out with the MAG 340 years ago, it's kind of the same thing. Now, it does have some of the updates. It does have more features, right? It is denser in terms of smaller, faster, lighter, denser, and cheaper. Denser means more feature-rich, more features on the crossbow. And it does have anti-dry fire system. It does have an upgraded trigger. It does have finger guards. It has a lot of those things that the original Bungie does not have. But it is on the lower end of the speeds for Excalibur. It is 340 feet per second, that MAG 340 is. And it is a really simple, basic crossbow by their standards. If we move up the MAG Air, I'm not even going to look at that one. I'm not interested in 305 feet per second in the modern era, not one bit. I'll look at the MAG Max, however, that MAG Max. This is a good looking piece of equipment so far. What we see here is very similar to the MAG 340. We see, okay. Oh, look, what's this? Lead time update. Due to a high volume of orders, we are experiencing longer than normal lead times on crossbows. Wow. Well, maybe this guy right here should get out of the backyard and go in there and start helping them fill their orders. This is not uncommon. We are seeing this a little bit with every manufacturer. And now, according to Excalibur themselves, they're having trouble with filling orders, customer service. We've seen Raven struggle with that in the last couple of years. Now Excalibur. It's a sign of the times. It really is. It is an economic thing that reaches beyond crossbows. It's not just crossbows. The crossbow industry is affected by the economy the way any other industry is affected by the economy. So time will tell what happens with that down the road. We look at the Mag Max here now, starting at $799. Now that's interesting because if we take a look here, if we go back to crossbows, okay, and we go back to that Mag 340, that also starts at $799. Interesting. And they're still warning us about the lead time update. But let's go back to the Mag Max. And we look at this, now we're $799. When we talk about smaller, faster, lighter, denser, and cheaper, cheaper is part of that as well. This is, unfortunately, stop telling me about the lead time update, man. You guys are desperate or something. Fix it. Don't tell me about your problems. Fix your problems. How about that? $799.99 in today's market for crossbows for an Excalibur is really not a bad price, okay? I won't say it's cheaper because it's the same price as the Mag 340, but this has more features. So in a sense, to me, it almost qualifies as cheaper because you're getting more for the same money, if that makes any sense. It's not, I mean, it's not less than the $799, but you can look around and probably get this for a little bit less than the $799. I did a video last year about prices overall in crossbows, and I looked at what we could get for Bunjie money, right, from 2010. If we adjusted for inflation, how much would that be today? And what could we purchase for that? The Mag 340 was right on the cusp of that, okay? Now, inflation's gone up a lot since the time of that video, I'm betting. And I think now this is in Bunjie era level of money. So it would fall into one of the categories of crossbows that you can get. Features: maximize the moment. Excalibur's legendary design
and technology produces the most rugged and reliable crossbow in its class.
Okay. High output limbs are the most efficient, reliable, and durable limbs on the market. The high output limbs are a newer model limb for Excalibur. We do see that on a lot of their crossbows. I think they're getting rid of, working out of their system, all the older limbs and moving into an HO limb going forward on all the different models, at least for the Micro Series crossbows. And it looks like they're getting out of the Matrix Series crossbow line as well. I think over time you're going to see just the Micros, which this is a 25-inch wide limb. Comparing what we got here, okay, 25-inch wide micro limbs. This is the Raven R29X. And you can see the difference in size in terms of the width of these two crossbows. The 25-inch wide crossbow, this is Genevieve's Bunjie Jr., a 355 micro suppressor. Genevieve still loves this crossbow, right? It's kind of wide, you know, especially if you're used to shooting something more like this, a more modern style of crossbow. This is much more compact. But this crossbow, the Mag Max, is going to be the same width as that. It's going to be 25 inches wide, uncocked. And that is the size that we're really interested in. Not so much interested in how narrow it gets. I'm interested in what its overall width is after you pull the trigger, because that's what's going to hit the blind next to you. That's what's going to hit the person next to you. That's what's going to hit the tree next to you, that sort of thing. That width is what we really want, that overall width. Ceasefire technology ensures your crossbow will not fire unless an arrow is loaded. This is Excalibur's modern version of an anti-dry fire system. It has to do with the knock. You got to use the right knock in order to activate that. That's my understanding. But if you use the right arrow knock, which using the right knock on a crossbow is important. Okay, I don't care what crossbow you got. But if you use the right knock, it will activate that anti-dry fire. If you pull the trigger, it's not going to fire unless the arrow is in there. Very important. Premium clean breaking trigger that delivers precise, consistent accuracy like no other. This trigger on this thing, on the old slow Bunjie, I love that trigger. It was great, never a problem. Trigger on the Scorpion Deathstalker was great. Trigger on the SWAT X1's great. Trigger on Genevieve's crossbow is great. The Raven crossbow, this one I like. I've shot Ravens, I didn't like the trigger. This one I do like. This is what it is. Red's suppressors substantially reduce shock vibration and noise. These are the red suppressors specifically. If you look at these, they are the rubber things. Now I do have those. Oh boy, this is important too. Oh, and they're going to pop up again on here, but this time it's not about limited staff. This time it's about accessory fit chart. You can click here and you'll see which crossbows you can add this little accessory to. That's important because it doesn't fit all of them. But I do have them on the old Bunjie. I put them on there just because it was an accessory I bought and wanted to try them out, and I just never took them off. I don't know that it makes an awful lot of difference. I have some criticisms of them. I've done another video on that. This concept, you do not want your string resting against it, I will tell you that. If you're using these, you want to use them correctly and make sure you have the proper brace height. If you have your string resting against them, the problem is it's dumping all of the energy into the crossbow. It'll stop vibrating real fast, but it's an awful lot of shock for the crossbow to absorb without the ability to dissipate it over time. And that's the problem with these. That's not why I'm not a particularly big fan of them. But if we go back on here, we do see another kind of anti-vibration on here as well, and that is on the limbs. We have rubber on the limbs. I am not a big fan of rubber on the limbs. If I were to purchase this crossbow, I probably would cut that off first thing. I would get rid of those and shoot it without that, but I would up the arrow weight. With a heavier arrow, we're going to talk about that here, but with a heavier arrow, you'll get the same thing, but you'll get better arrow penetration. On a crossbow like this, you might want that. These are cutting your speed down right off the bat, okay? That rubber is, because it's weight on the limbs. It makes the limbs move more slowly. And that's the only reason why it reduces vibrations, because the limbs are moving more slowly. And if you use a heavier arrow, guess what happens? The limbs move more slowly, but it will put more energy downrange at impact, okay? And I've done tons of videos on that too. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about that, nor are we going to spend a lot of time talking about the limited lifetime warranty. Warranties are a thing. I've done other videos on that, another view of it. So the quiver does attach like that. Again, we do have the stock very similar to the Mag 340. I do like that stock. It is a lightweight stock, comfortable stock. I've shouldered these before. They are, and people that have these love them. Another thing I like about this is the pistol grip. Compared to the original Bunjie that has more of a rifle style stock, this pistol grip is a very comfortable thing to wield. Okay, how's that for a word? Wield. Let's look at some of the specs. This is what I wanted to talk about really on this. It is 350 feet per second. Now that is an increase in speed over the Mag 340. The Mag 340 shooting 340 feet per second. This is 350 feet per second. So really we are smaller, faster, lighter, denser, cheaper. We have upped the speed of this by 10 feet per second is all, however. This isn't in 2025, 350 feet per second is the entry level to me to a modern speed, and we're getting away from that. We're getting more and more crossbows in the above 400 feet per second range. Plus, here's the deal, and you guys probably know what I'm going to say. That 350 feet per second is with a 350 grain arrow, total arrow weight. That's with the field point or broadhead screwed on the end of the arrow. 350 grains. Nobody should be hunting with a 350 grain arrow as a crossbow hunter in 2025. There's no reason to do that. We have access to tons of arrows to buy and heavier broadheads, what have you, to get you into that 450 to 500 grain range, total arrow weight. And when you do that, the amount of energy that you produce downrange is phenomenal. 400 grains for an arrow weight or above, phenomenal energy downrange. The other thing you do is you take the load off the limbs of that crossbow and make it last a little bit longer. Because again, the limbs are now working a little bit less. They're moving a little bit more slowly, and you're putting less energy back into the crossbow and a little bit more into that arrow every time you pull the trigger. So a little bit of extra weight. You don't need to go to 600 grains or anything like that. I'm not talking about that. With a modern crossbow, I think you got to be in the 400s at least, right? And if you're doing that, you are getting everything out of the crossbow. You're still getting whopping speeds. Now with this crossbow, the problem is they're giving us 350 feet per second with a 350 grain arrow. That is imaginary numbers. Do you understand? This is not a 350 feet per second crossbow. It's not. The Mag 340 is not a 340 feet per second crossbow because I don't consider it a real speed unless you're shooting 400 grains. I want to know what you can get with 400 grains. The Mag 340 is really like a Mag 320. It's really a Mag 315. That's what they should call it. Whatever speed that they can attain with a 400 grain arrow. This is really like a Mag 325, maybe a Mag 330, I don't know, something like that. But it really is not shooting a modern speed. It just isn't. So we're not really in that faster category when we compare this crossbow to other manufacturers or pretty much anything else in the modern era of crossbows. I do like the weight, 6 pounds with no accessories, 7.9 pounds with the scope on it. That's a light crossbow. And again, a lot of that has to do with this stock and the fact that they've reduced that weight there. Now that might make it a little more front heavy, but if the shoulder's nice, if it has a good fit and feel, and I believe it does because talking to people who use Mag 340s, they love them. This is a crossbow with a big following, probably because of price. That's another big reason, because you're getting into a really solid crossbow platform for $800. That's a big deal for people. They can get into the Excalibur club for $800. That's pretty cool. So that is a big part of it. But this is a lighter crossbow too. And you got room to put the Burris Oracle X on there. With a crossbow like this, that Burris Oracle X, people have problems with, there's so much vibration on the Excaliburs, all that vibration ruins that scope over time, I've heard. Some people complain about that. If that's the case, you might have a problem with it on here, but boy, it would be a nice compliment, because if you can mount that on this crossbow, you've got the best of both worlds. You have a good solid platform of crossbow with a fantastic scope option. Rope aid, draw type. Modern crossbows are drawn back with a cocking aid. Well, not all of them, because I consider my SWAT X1 a modern crossbow. Maybe not, because they quit making it, I think. But I still like rope cocking if I can, right? Scorpion Deathstalker, rope cock that with a sled. Although the Raven has got a pretty nice crank on it. Excalibur crossbows use attachable cranks, integrated cranks, and rope cockers to achieve as little as 12 pounds of draw effort. You are not getting 12 pounds of draw effort on this crossbow with a rope. That's a fact. This is probably a 300 plus pound draw weight crossbow. So pulling this back with a rope, you are probably not going to enjoy that a whole lot. It does have a groove for the rope. So this can be rope cocked. Now the Rev X, when we saw that come out, the Rev X did not have a groove. It was sleek there, and you wouldn't be able to put a rope around it. So they don't want you rope cocking that crossbow. This one, it appears as though they have designed it in a way to anticipate rope cocking. So it probably comes with a rope cocker, and good luck with that. Right here it says draw effort is 14 pounds. So that tells me this one's on the higher end of draw weights, and 14 pounds is a lot of tension, okay? The other thing about an Excalibur crossbow, a recurve crossbow, is that as you draw it back, it only gets harder, right? And you get all the way back and cocked. Now it's sitting at full draw with all of the weight, all 300 pounds or 340 pounds of draw weight is on that string the whole time you are sitting there. Think about that next time you're in a tree stand. Think about the next time that you are in a blind with your crossbow cocked, right? You're sitting there for 6 hours, and think about that. That crossbow sitting there with nothing but a string holding against those latches, holding 340 pounds back that whole time. Think about that. That makes me a little nervous. It really does. That's an awful lot. The difference with a compound crossbow, and they vary, but when you pull back, you get to the let off because of the cams. So the SWAT X1, while I'm sitting there for my 6 hours in a blind with the SWAT X1, not the whole 250 pounds or whatever it is, or 200 pounds or whatever it is. It's considerably less than that. I could put the numbers on the screen, but I don't remember. That's a big difference. Overall length 32 inches, so it is the same length as the other ones. This is not a bullpup design. The action is up here. It is forward of your hand grip, so it's not in the safety's right here above your hand. It is instead a more traditional design, and I kind of like that. That's a good setup for this crossbow. It is very similar to when we looked at the Raven LR, how it's built on an R10 platform. That's a tried, true, and tested platform for them. By putting an R29X front end or whatever it is on the front end of that and combining the two platforms, they've really upgraded their catalog of crossbows. That's really what this is. They've taken the traditional fan favorite Mag 340 and they've added high output limbs to it and upped the speed by 10 feet per second. Not a bad choice, right, for a new crossbow to add to your catalog. Comes with a dead zone scope. That's cool. It comes in various colors. I'm a big fan of black. Anytime you can get black, you know, that's cool. Bottomland, yes. Up and down. I really like this camo pattern. And then we look at this guy. That looks like it's getting ready to hunt some ducks or something. I don't know. That is the Mossy Oak Country DNA. But there you go. There's your camo patterns. Comes with, this is a package. So this is very similar to the original Bunjie. It does come with a very nice package, and that's pretty cool. So that's good stuff. So there is your Mag Max. Now, my big criticism of this crossbow would be the speed. You are not getting modern speeds with this crossbow. You're getting 350 at 350. And in the modern era, right, like I wrote in my book, The Death by Bunjie Crossbow Method, what are we looking for? We're looking for something a little bit more, right? The modern era is pretty much, to me, defined by stuff that can shoot around 400 feet per second with a 400 grain arrow. That is more of a modern era. And it's also crossbow perfection, if you can be in that mix. That is where you got so much energy, it goes through the deer with ease, but not so much that it goes 100 yards past the deer. It just leaves the arrow on the other side. It gives you the choice of every broadhead you would want to use. You're not limited to
tiny little fixed blade broadheads.
Who in the world wants to stick with just
tiny little fixed blade broadheads when
you can use a 3-inch Swhacker, right, and run that through a deer? That's what you want, and that's crossbow perfection. 400 feet per second, 400 grain arrow gets you there. That's what we're looking for. This does not do that. This with a 400 grain arrow is going to get you 320 maybe feet per second. Genevieve's shooting a crossbow that's now going on 10 years old, right? That micro suppressor 355, 355 feet per second. They put this out in 2015 or so. They were putting that speed out in 2010. The 355, you understand? Like, that's not a new speed. I'm getting ready to record the next video series here on looking at Killer Instinct crossbows, and it occurred to me that one thing in that last video, the video that I just shot about the new Excalibur crossbow, I want to jump in here and add one thing, because I know what we're going to get for comments. And people are going to say,
320 feet per second is more than enough to kill deer, blah, 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 blah.
And then they're going to go on about how
the American Indians killed deer with, stick and string, blah.
I don't care about all that, all right? We are crossbow hunters. Death by Bunjie is a crossbow hunting channel, and this is 2025. It is the modern era of crossbows. And in the modern era of crossbows, 325 feet per second or what have you is not acceptable to me, and I'll tell you why. I've hunted with everything from 250 feet per second up to 400 feet per second. And I can tell you that the difference between that 250 to 300 feet per second range and the 350 to 400 feet per second range, I can tell you there is no comparison. The old speeds are not acceptable in this day and age. This calculator on deathbybungie.com comes preloaded with the original Bungie's specs, okay? 305 feet per second, 350 grain arrow weight. However, if we are to put in this new crossbow, a 350, right? And we tab over and we have a 350 grain arrow, right? Still that 350 grain arrow, but now shooting 350 feet per second. When we calculate our foot pounds and our slugs, this is embarrassing. 0.543 slugs of momentum in the modern era is not crossbow worthy. That is vertical bow stuff, right? Those are numbers that the other guys get. Those are not the numbers that we, as crossbow hunters, deserve. Don't have to worry about deer ducking the string on reasonable shots, 35 yards and in. You can aim where you want that arrow to go and expect it to get there before the deer can change your point of impact. You can use whatever broadhead you want and it's going to go through that deer on any proper shot. It's going to kill a deer on a shoulder blade shot. Doesn't make any difference, right? Still going to do some damage. Not limited to
tiny little fixed blade broadheads.
A flatter trajectory only means that you have a greater likelihood of perfect accuracy. 2 bucks 2 years ago, back in 2023, kaboom. That was just crossbow perfection. It does not get any better than that. And once you have experienced that, you will agree with me that 250 to 300 feet per second just doesn't cut it. You understand? 320 feet per second just doesn't cut it. I promise you that down the road, that 450 feet per second mark, sometime on Death by Bungie, I'm going to be telling you the same thing. Once I've killed deer at 450, I'm probably not going to want to kill deer at 400 or 350. I get that, right? I'm just not there yet. But I can tell you, at least keep an open mind. Speed matters. Like I said, it's the modern Bungie. But then again, I'm not hunting with Bungie anymore, am I? We're going to look at some other stuff from Excalibur, I think, before this season of looking at new crossbow and crossbow accessories is gone. So stay tuned, subscribe, check back later. Until next time, all hail Bungie.